Ashley Blake and her training partner Joshua Scott were running through the forest when a faint rustling caught their attention. The pair decided to interrupt their jog and investigate. That was when they found 5 frightened little animals. The Barkley Fall Classic is a testing 31-mile race through the brushy mountains in Frozen Head State Park, Tennessee. The event is designed to test the limits of runners' endurance. So, when Blake and Scott signed up to compete in 2018, they knew that they would have to train hard. While the race wasn't scheduled to take place until September 2018, by March of that year Blake and her training partner Scott, both of Oak Ridge, Tennessee, had their running regime well underway. And that month, they visited Frozen Head State Park, where the Barkley Fall Classic takes place. During their training run, the pair would get an idea of the kind of terrain that they would be facing during the event. The landscape was rough and rugged, which no doubt added to the challenges facing Blake and Scott. The pair were planning to complete the full 31-mile course around the park. So, they put their heads down and got to work. Halfway through their run, however, something caught their eye. And it was so shocking that it forced them to abandon their training session. Blake and Scott were making their way down a wooded track when they spotted a pile of black fur. Upon further investigation, the runners could make out 5 tiny bodies. And despite the bitterly cold temperatures, the animals were still alive. In March 2018 Blake told the Dodo, "It was just a little rustling that caught us. It's as usual to hear forest critters, and that's what we expected. We turned and saw this black pile. It was 5 puppies huddled together. The pair had stumbled across 5 adorable black Labrador puppies. They were completely alone in this forest and were clustered together to keep warm. The sight tugged on Blake and Scott's heartstrings. As a result, they knew that they had to help. They were terrified and crying," Blake recalled. "They settled down once they realized we weren't going to harm them and we were warm. They were dumped without food, water, blanket or mother." Leaping into action, the pair scooped the puppies up and delivered them to a park ranger. Sadly, he wasn't even shocked by the runner's story. In fact, he told Blake and Scott that pets are often dumped in the park. The park ranger explained that people leave animals in that area because it is so remote. As a result, they believe that they can ditch pets there without being seen. And in this case, it appeared that those responsible had gotten away with their actions. Luckily, though, the 5 puppies had been found before anything too terrible could happen to them. And they were now in the safe hands of Blake and Scott, who, along with the park ranger, were eager to get the animals' lives back on track. The ranger agreed that he would look after the puppies at his home for the time being. After that, he planned to hand them over to an animal shelter, where they would hopefully all find loving homes and families to take care of them. By this point, however, Blake and Scott were already invested in the 5 dogs' futures. So, they later transported the puppies to the shelter themselves. And the heartwarming story didn't end there. Blake's training partner Scott decided to adopt one of the dogs, in fact, whom he later named Barkley. The puppy slotted into his new family nicely, quickly bonding with Scott's 2 other dogs. And he wasn't the only member of the litter to have his happy ending. Eventually, forever homes were found for all of the puppies. But if it hadn't been for Blake and Scott, they might not even have survived for another day. So, it was certainly a job well done by the 2 runners. Clearly proud of her exploits, in March 2018 Blake posted her story to the Trail and Ultra Running Group's Facebook page. The site is usually reserved for posts about marathon running. Nonetheless, Blake's animal rescue tale went down a storm. Relaying the details of the rescue, Blake wrote, "Halfway through a Barkley Fall Classic 50K training run in Frozen Head, my training partner and I found a litter of 5 shivering puppies. With freezing temperatures and no food, they surely would not have made the night." Explaining how she and Scott had stepped in to help the puppies, Blake added, "The wonderful rangers met us and will bring them to the shelter today. Now we can add saving puppies to the list of ultra running adventures." She later returned to the running site to add, "We took the puppies this morning to the shelter. Barkley is now part of my friend's family. He made a perfect birthday present."